Man, technical interviews can be the absolute worst. If you're enjoying the content you are seeing today, make sure to like, subscribe, share with all your family and friends as we are releasing new videos every Monday and Wednesday for all the Day One listeners. Alright, it's story time. I want to share my experience with you guys as a junior developer years ago, my very first technical interview that went horrible, and I remember walking out of it feeling like I thought I did pretty good. And I look back on like the questions they asked me and how I answered them. I mean, I'm probably a little bit hard on myself, but I digress. Let's get into the story. So I gotta set the scene. So to paint a picture of who I was at the time, I was a junior developer. I knew a little bit of JavaScript, barely any Java. I was working at a organization at the time, so I had some confidence because I was a developer. I had the title software engineer. I was working on code. I was doing merge requests, pull requests, working on CI/CD, automation. I was doing the thing. I felt like I was a software developer. At this particular point in time, at this particular company, there was another big tech company. I'm just going to leave names out because it gets messy when you start dropping names and telling stories like this. But really, again, this is all for educational purposes. So for me, we were at a really good company, but another big company moved into town and they pretty much were just throwing out bags of money. They were pretty much saying, hey, if you don't like where you work, if you feel underpaid, if you want a new title, whatever it is you are looking for to satisfy your happiness, we would love to have a conversation with you. If you are a strong engineer, we would love to bring you on and make whatever it is you're looking for a reality. And it really was like that. I mean, some of the offers people got, from signing bonuses to things that they were willing to match to, this is before COVID and working remote. So some people were able to go in there and pitch, hey, can I be remote or hybrid for a bit? Really, like they were trying to get all of the best talent in the Phoenix Valley. And part of me was kind of curious. I was a developer for a year. Like I said, I had confidence, but I had that junior confidence, that overconfidence. Because you don't know anything, you think you know everything. And because of that, I ended up applying for this role, ended up talking to a recruiter, and it's been a while since I've interviewed for a software engineering role. And I'll even tell you guys, just so you understand how bad this went and how unprepared I was. But even the job that I had already, that I was debating about leaving for a better job, quote unquote, the funny thing about that was my first job interview was very, very bad technically. They really liked me as a person. They liked me because I had follow-up questions. I was curious. I wanted to be good. And I asked all these questions about how do I get good at software engineering. That is probably the main reason they hired me. But from a technical standpoint, I wasn't there. And they were okay with that. They were willing to work with me. But at this organization, I was going in like as an experienced developer. So the first thing, let's get to the story. The first thing is I talk to the recruiter, you set up the time, you go into the office. So this is pre-COVID, like I said. This is when you would go into the office and actually talk to people, shake hands. And this was a large company, so they had me for about 6 hours. And this is for a junior role. Apparently, if you were to do like senior or something higher, it's probably a 2-day meeting and possibly a trip up to their headquarters. But times have changed, things are different. I digress. What I wanted to tell you guys is when I get there, they introduced me to 6 different engineers. Their office is about 100 plus engineers. You can tell still brand new, people are moving in, but everything was very, very techy. They had the free lunches, they had the free ping pong table, the free vending machines, which I thought was really cool. A lot of the benefits you hear about a lot of these organizations, they were putting it for display for all the people who were trying to get in the door. And me going in, I thought I had it in the bag. I was like, I've been writing applications. What kind of questions could they ask me? The first thing they do, they throw me up in a room, 3 developers, no computer. And I'm like sitting there thinking to myself, there's no computer. Like, what do you guys want me to do? They point to the whiteboard. And I'm never going to forget the question they asked me and the way he asked it. I'm going to give you an array of stocks. There are going to be about 7 or 8 elements in the array. Using logic, writing pseudocode, tell me the best time to buy a stock and the best time to sell a stock. And I remember just looking at him, no computer, just a whiteboard and marker in my hand, thinking to myself, what in the because in real life, I never did anything like that. Like, I mean, that's a legitimate problem. The point of that problem I've learned over time. I understand it's about problem solving, understanding algorithms, understanding how to break down problems. It's not necessarily a right answer, but how you think. But guys, at the time, I was shaking in my boots. When I say he handed me that marker and I was in that room with this team, probably only about 5 to 10 minutes. That was the longest 5 to 10 minutes of my life. I started writing some stuff down on the board. I started writing for loops, and I was saying, well, maybe the one thing I would do is go through the array and figure out something. And they're like, oh, okay, so you loop through it. I'm like, yes, of course. So I write a for loop, and I'm not gonna lie, I remember even struggling writing a for loop. I didn't realize the editors had handicapped me to the point where I barely knew the syntax off of memory. Or I just copy and pasted, always looked at reference code. So I feel like I got exposed within myself as I'm getting exposed to these other engineers who were interviewing me. After I read a few for loops, they were like, okay, but that's kind of inefficient if you have 2 for loops, right? You're going back and forth, doing some comparisons. Like, how would you make it faster? And I just thought to myself, man, I'm trying to get out of this room as fast as I can. What do you mean faster? I'm not trying to be efficient. But I'm telling you guys this because it was a experience that opened my eyes up to what software engineering can be like, and then what the problems are with software engineering, in my opinion. Interviews like that, they definitely have their place. And the reason I want to tell you guys this story is because the rest of the interview is actually funny. I feel like it went up and down. So anything that was super technical, I think my next question was, can you reverse through a binary tree? And I didn't remember asking a person, and he really didn't have an answer, but I really wish I would have said this with more confidence and a deeper voice. But I look back and I'm like, is this what you would do on a daily basis? Like, is this the type of problem solving you guys do? And they all looked at me and they're like, well, these questions kind of show us your problem solving capabilities. And I was like, okay, but like the day-to-day job, I'm not doing this. I'm probably writing, APIs in Spring and maybe doing some front end work in React, because that's really my skill set. And they were like, oh yeah, the day-to-day job is a little bit different than what we asked in the interview. And I remember hearing that and I was like, dude, that's weird. But I guess I understand, because for this organization, scalability, flexibility, efficiency, all priorities. So they actually do care if you know how to solve a problem, and if there's a more efficient way to solve it. They actually care if you know the more efficient way and how you get there. They actually care about how you problem solve, because they think that's a telltale sign of how you can solve real problems that the organization's having. And remember, these companies are established, so they're not trying to solve like which tool should we use for our documentation, or should we use GitHub or GitLab. Like they are clearly established to the point where they might be running into problems that no other organization are running into. So that's why they might ask some of these rigorous questions in these technical interviews. But going back to where it gets worse. So like I said, this interview that I had was about 6 hours long. The first hour was being grilled on a multiple algorithm functions. So like the bind to stocks was the first one, and then the next one was the reversing the binary tree, which these are not super difficult questions. You'll find a lot of breakdowns on Leak Code and Algo Expert and all Tech Lead. All those guys are putting out great content covering you in that regard. But I just remember calling out like, this isn't real, right? So I go into the product portion of it. And this is where I know I was an entrepreneur, because I was supposed to be there an hour. Spent an hour and a half with this product person, actually pitched him an idea that I think he kind of liked, and he was impressed that at my age I actually had thought of an idea that to him was like, oh, that's actually applicable. I think a lot of people pitch ideas in meetings and it's like, yeah, that would be nice, but we're probably never going to do it. I feel like I at least hooked this guy into what I was trying to do, because it was something we were already encountering at my last job. So after I had my conversation with the product person, I go talk to the project manager. Project manager, again, you're talking to people who are not writing code. So it was like 2 hours of grilling yourself. You don't know code. You don't know anything about it. And guys, when I say it's socially awkward, imagine being in a room and you just don't have the answer, and you have another 30 minutes. Because then the interviewers felt awkward. They're like, well, do we coach him through it, or do we just cut it short? And like, he knows to cut it short because we clearly told him it's this long in this room. So again, it got awkward fast, and I'm in there sweating. When I finally talk to the other people, I'm feeling better about myself. And then the last guy I interview, he sits me down and he's like, so this is going to be the hardest part of the interview. He's like, all right, we want to build a chat application. And I was like, oh my God, I've literally done this on tutorials, but it's probably been a while, so I don't remember all the pieces. But this is where my overconfidence came in, because I actually was able to somewhat design some database regarding a chat program. And at that point, I felt like I demonstrated that, hey, I'm junior. There are some questions you asked me that I made it I didn't like try to bullshit them. I really sat there and I was like, hey, look, I'll be honest with you. I'm not really familiar with the computer science fundamentals, so reversing a binary tree, I'll try. And they kind of looked at me like, you don't know computer science and you're a developer? And I was like, oh, crap, this doesn't look good. I don't feel good. I'm sweating. I'm shaking. I'm nervous. I'm stuttering. Just imagine like you being on stage in the worst situation possible, whatever that is to you. That's kind of how I felt at this time. So you guys kind of see a picture. Like, I feel like I spent 6 hours talking to both technical people, not technical people, getting grilled, really feeling like a roller coaster, like feeling like, oh, I'm gonna get this job, to there's no way to hire me, to, oh, that person really liked me, to I think I answered that person's question. And yeah, finally go home, talk to my manager, the happy hour, because I was actually cool with my manager. Then I remember he was like, man, you're really nervous, what's going on? And I was like, I didn't want to tell you, but I interviewed at this company. And he was like, why didn't you tell me? It would have helped you. I'm going to that company. And I was like, oh my gosh, really? And actually found out half of my company went to this newer company. And it's funny because I wanted to be secretive, because I didn't want to kind of spread up like, oh, I'm trying to leave. Like, who wants that? Especially when it was your first engineering job. And then the funny part of it is, guys, is half the company went to that company. Half of them, once like one or two got in at management and leadership type level, then I think we were able to not necessarily figure out the interview, but understand how to prepare for the interview. And the people were coaching other people during their off hours and going home after hours working on it. And yeah, I was surprised. Like, a lot of them ended up going over there. Some went to a startup, but I remember going through that interview as one of the very first people. And like, imagine like out of your peers, like when I say we're in the very first people, you know, when I started my first engineering job, I probably started with like 7 or 8 people who were the same boat. Didn't really code, come out of college, wanted to get into coding. And about a year and a half later, we were all entertaining like, hey, I'm getting contacted by recruiters all the time. Like, what does that mean? What should I do? And I remember taking a leap, trying to go for that bigger company. And man, that interview opened up my eyes. So I say all this because you're probably going to have a shitty interview. You're probably going to go through 1 or 2 interviews where they ask you all the questions you don't know. They're going to ask you to do something you're not comfortable doing. And really, the best piece of advice I can give you is ask the question, because I've seen people post on Blind and say this. So if you do this, let me know and hit me up on Twitter, because I really would love to hear your story. But when they start asking you questions that you don't feel are really part of the job, but like really like those, like, let me see if I can trip them up type questions, I've seen some people push back on that, and they're straight up saying like, like for example, I saw a video recently, somebody was talking about like, hey, when you're interviewing for like a staff engineer or a principal engineer or like one of those higher level engineer roles, and they start asking you like leak code type questions where they're giving you algorithms and asking you to break it down. Not saying they don't want you to be able to do that, but I've seen people pretty much come back and be like, is that what you expect me to do day to day? Because I can solve this problem, but I do a lot more system design or architecture. And they really just call it like, this is what I currently do, what it is that you want me to do at this new job. Like, can you explain that to me? And I'm just asking, are the questions you're asking me aligned to that job? Or are you just trying to be like Facebook and Google? Are you just trying to copy all the big tech companies because they all do 2-week sprints, so you should do 2-week sprints? And they do whiteboarding interviews, so you should do whiteboarding interviews. So what I will tell you is, know what you're getting into. If you're going to go for a FANG company, if you want to go for one of these like established tech companies, you know the rigor, you know there's resources out there to help you get through the program, but understand what fire you're jumping into. Also, understand not every technical interview is going to be the same, but I will tell you, get very good at consuming APIs, being able to show your thought process. Because really that's the main thing a lot of people are seeing. It's like, you might not be a phenomenal coder, you might not know all the fancy ways to do something, but they just want to see, how do you break down problems? And if I give you a bigger complex problem, can you break that down in manageable chunks where you can maybe distribute it out or take it in sequential order to understanding, let's do 1, 2, 3 first. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this short little story. Pretty much trying to tell you, you will get grilled in your interview. It will suck. But please interview more. You'll get more practice. And then go home, take like a self-evaluation. Really think to yourself, what was it about the interview that went well and what didn't go well, and what can I do moving forward? That's all I got for you guys. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Make sure to like, subscribe, share with all your family and friends. But we out. Peace.